Hello and welcome to This Week in Agriculture. I'm Esther Gishuki, and joining me is none other than Dr. Kelvin Osore from the Kenya Veterinary Association. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Esther.
Daktari.
Thank you, Esther.
Yes, now I just want you to paint a picture about exactly what you do and the kind of work areas.
All right, so as you said, I'm the Assistant Treasurer for the Kenya Veterinary Association. So basically doing a lot of bookkeeping and finance keeping and so on. But the Kenya Veterinary Association, in short, deals with the welfare of the veterinary surgeons in the country. It also deals with the welfare of animals in the country, and it also deals with the issues affecting the food industry, basically the animal resources industry. So we will be championing issues of food safety, food security, together with animal welfare and the welfare of the professionals. Yes.
Okay, and so there's even a conference that is coming up this week. Tell us a little bit about it.
The themes of the conference, among others, are food security and food safety, antimicrobial resistance.
What does that mean?
Oh, all right. So antimicrobial resistance is it's a challenge. How do I put it? A modern challenge where a lot of antimicrobials, that's antibiotics, disinfectants, and so on, are being used in the ways that are not supposed to be used. So what you end up having is that you use an antibiotic in lower doses or more frequently than you're supposed to use it. So what happens is in the long run, that antibiotic no longer works against the infection that you're using it against. So that is what we'll call antimicrobial resistance. But the key point to remember is it does not only affect antibiotics. It can refer to disinfectants, it can refer to hand sanitizers and so on. The other key areas we'll be focusing on are reptile medicine and surgery. This is a new field that I think most Kenyans are not aware about. But reptiles like snakes also have to have surgery when they have infections and so on. Another area will be, I mentioned food safety. So the current issues that we're having on aflatoxins, the issues on antimicrobial resistance that I mentioned, pesticide residues and so on. Another topic we'll be focusing on is poultry production. We know the poultry industry has challenges right now.
Yes.
There's an issue of prices. There's an issue of influx of cheap imports from neighboring countries and so on.
Exactly.
So we'll be talking about that. Other topics, just to bring this to a conclusion, will be public health and zoonosis. So if you come to the conference, at least you can hear a word about the current coronavirus outbreak, the COVID-19. And you can also, we will also be having a discussion on apiculture, which is basically beekeeping.
Yes, okay. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So we'll start off with our stories for the day. Now, the first story, locusts with yellow pigmentation might not be approaching the end of their life cycles after all. University of Nairobi entomologist John Deritu says that this color may indicate, among others, the sex and maturity of the locust. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya had urged people not to worry about the yellow-colored locust as they were, in his words, approaching the end of their life cycle. Mark Namaswa explains.
At the University of Nairobi's Kabete campus, Faculty of Agriculture, researchers routinely sample locusts and grasshoppers, study their behavior and, in case of invasions, finding out the best strategies of dealing with them. Professor John Nderitu is an insect expert here.
According to the history, we have 70 years ago, that's when the seriousness of locusts was in this country. Maybe some colonialists who even left because of locusts.
Locusts have baffled and terrorized mankind in history. Case in point, ancient Egypt in the biblical book of Exodus. The current invasion has mowed down thousands of hectares of vegetation southwards from the Arabian Peninsula to the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa, Kenya included, has been grappling with the issue of the desert locust invasion for several weeks now. But one thing has remained unclear. How do you differentiate between desert locusts and grasshoppers? Which is which?
The only difference is that locusts can swarm. They can increase in numbers and move from one area to another by flying more than 100 kilometers per day. That's a lot of difference. Grasshoppers will only be regionalized in a particular site, and they can build as much big numbers as locusts.
Telling these insects apart brings to the fore the confusion among not just members of the public but also government officials. They are expected to know better. On Sunday, Agriculture Minister Peter Munya attempted to explain the colors exhibited by locusts in Meru.
Na mkiona siko na rangi ya yellow, hiyo rangi ya yellow sinamaanisha hizo ni wakongwe, ni wazee. So ile wanashughulikia saa hii ni kutafuta ni wapi wataweka mayai.
But scientists say explaining the color is not an open and shut case.
We cannot say that when you see the yellow one, they will die. No. They have still a lifespan. And within a cohort or a swarming, there are different ages, even as they look yellow. Some are still laying, others are still towards the head. So when you look at a cohort or mature, is that it doesn't have a specific time. It's still a time limit that they have.
In fact, it turns out that among some of the locusts at the University of Nairobi lab, yellow-colored locusts are adult males. The females look bigger and brownish. Desert locusts are known to eat toxic plants that make them turn to bright yellow and black color, which sends a signal to their predators that they are dangerous to eat. And it can get more complicated with color as it did with immediate former agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri.
Kiona mdudu wote ambaye mnafikiria ni locusts, tafadhali mpige picha, weka kwa social media na itatufikia.
The Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, currently spearheading pesticide control on the locusts, has termed the situation in East Africa as extremely alarming. A swarm covering 1 square kilometer can eat as much food as 35,000 people in a day. In Kenya, at least 18 counties are grappling with the locust invasion.
So it's the second month since they were first sighted in the country, and it has affected over 17 counties. I want to get your thoughts on that story.
I would say, Esther, it's a sad story, but it's a story we're used to, I think, in how we approach issues of national importance and especially disasters. So initially, we were warned of flooding and heavy rainfall in the country, and we didn't take action. That is the time we should have taken action. Because I think Mauritania have implemented this before. They were warned about the climatic changes, creating conditions that were perfect for the locust invasions, and they worked on it. Made sure that they attacked the locusts before they got out of the stage where they can cause a lot of harm. So we waited too long. So we are now trying to do damage control, which we are very good at, doing damage control instead of mitigating the invasion. So I think it's a lesson. If we have such a problem in the future, we need to attack it before it becomes too much. Yeah.
One of the things that came out in this story and also other stories around it is that it has now become a breeding ground. Isiolo has now become a breeding ground for these locusts. And we've also seen Germany through FAO come and give Kenya 350 million Kenyan shillings. I want to get your thoughts whether you think that is a step in the right direction. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think if we are going to target the locusts in Isiolo when they're still breeding, then that is a step in the right direction. But now the worry is the locusts have spread all over the country. So what are we going to do to the other parts? You know, right now there's only so much we can do, the government can do. But it's a good step. Let's target them when they're still breeding. Because with locusts, the locusts basically are just grasshoppers. What happens is that they are distinguished from grasshoppers from their what we call phenotypic plasticity. This is, I will explain it as, if we have one locust in an area, I mean, if we have one grasshopper in an area or two, they're not going to become locusts. They're not going to cause harm. But when they are crowded in an area, something happens, a behavioral change. So they start crowding together, and then they start swarming. So this is the time to attack them normally is during breeding. You do not allow them to express their phenotypic or their behavioral phase before you attack them. So attack them first. And now I've heard the CS has said, you know, yellowing means they're coming to the end of their their life cycle,
Exactly.
which is a bit misleading in the sense that the yellowing shows that the locusts have actually, they're turning from the solitarious phase. They're normally very solitary, they're shy, they hide from each other. But when they start yellowing, that is normally a sign that they are becoming gregarious. This is basically they are swarming together and they are ready to cause a lot of devastation. So the yellowing is not, does not show that they are going to die.
Is it a sign of population that they want to start populating the second generation?
Basically, it's a sign, yes, you're partially right. It's a sign that these locusts have crowded for too long. They have moved from the phase, the solitarious phase, where they're shy of each other, and now they're not repelling each other anymore. That is the most dangerous phase. Now, what follows next is migration. So it is a sign that they have become dangerous, not a sign that they're about to die. So we
Were
have
they
to
not
get that
dangerous
clear.
from the beginning?
No, they were.
Because they came in as pink.
Yes. So they come in as pink, but the more they stay together, the more the pigmentation changes. So the pigmentation changes, and then they become more devastating, I'll say so. So the pink stage is still dangerous too, as you're saying, but the most devastating stage is the yellow stage. It is just a sign they have stayed closer together. They have, through secretion of pheromones and hormones and so on, they have adapted from a solitarious stage phase to gregarious phase, which is the most dangerous. So the government, I don't know who advised the CS on that, but that is the wrong advice he got. But what the government is doing in targeting the juvenile stage in Isiolo through the help of the FAO and the Germany government is the correct thing to do. So maybe we should see these extended to the other areas in the country that are being affected by locusts. Yes.
I want to get your thoughts on something else still related to that, is that there have been concerns. You remember last week on Monday, we saw the government come out to such areas such as Wajir, Marsabit and Samburu and do a massive spray. So there has been concerns that this spraying, first of all, it's not going inside the soil where the locusts actually lay their eggs.
Yes.
And
Yes.
second of all, it is affecting the ecosystem.
Yeah, that is right. We will always have issues to do with environmental contamination and the harmful effects of pesticides and other chemical compounds to the environment and to mammals. That is something we have to live with. I think what I find more stressful and more concerning is the fact that the government is not even telling us what chemical it's using. So even up to now, you are told by the CS that we've imported chemicals into the country, but they are not telling us which chemicals they are using, because they are chemicals which are more harmful and more toxic to mammals and even to the environment than others. So if you're using organochlorines, for example, or organophosphates, you do not expect the same effect on the environment and on mammals as when you're using natural products like pyrethrins, for example. So if the government told us what they're using, then we'll know what we are dealing with. But of course, in the long term, the counties which are affected and where aerial spraying is going on, we expect to see environmental contamination, and maybe the government should be putting up a plan on how to deal with that. Yes.
Thank you for that, Dr. Now, still on the livestock sector, 60 kilometers southeast of Nairobi on the road to Mombasa lies the Kapiti Research Station, 13,000 hectares of pristine semi-arid rangeland belonging to the International Livestock Research Institute, also known as ILRI. Kapiti's current research agenda takes on some of the most pressing issues facing livestock farmers in the country, such as foot and mouth disease, Rift Valley fever, among others. The ranch is home to 2,500 cattle, mainly of the local improved Boran breed, 1,200 sheep, and a mixture of the Dopa and Red Masai and camels.
Located in Machakos County and acquired in parcels between 1981 and 1987 by the International Laboratory for Research on Animal Diseases, LRAD, a predecessor of the International Livestock Research Institute, the vast station produces high-quality disease-free cattle for research purposes, mainly the improved control for the East Coast fever and the African trypanosomiasis.
We have a vaccine development unit in ILRI. And this vaccine development unit works, in example, on East Coast fever. There is a vaccine which is since 40 years or something available, developed by Muguga and partly with the support of ILRI. And you know, East Coast fever is a parasitic disease, and they developed decades ago the ITM method. It means infectious and treatment method. So you infect with the parasite and immediately you give an antibiotic, oxytetracycline example, and then the parasite is killed, but the immunity in the animal lasts forever. So it's a long life protection. It's a fantastic vaccine, very difficult to produce. So we produced it in ILRI once, but we are not a vaccine manufacturing site. So it was transferred the manufacturing to Malawi. There's an AU IBAR Malawi government vaccine manufacturing site, and they are taking over the manufacturing.
It is also a working dry ranch and produces heifers, bulls and other animals for commercial purposes. Ilona Glucks, the research facility manager.
So we have mainly most of our animals, like 95% are Boran cattle, so the Boran that come from northern Kenya and Ethiopia, and it is the improved Boran breed. So the traditional Boran is a dual purpose animal, both for beef and for milk, and then through breeding, selective breeding over time, over 100 years, they have created a beef animal now. The Boran is very specific for these areas because it is quite adapted to the semi-arid lands. It can do very well with this change in forage availability during the dry spell and the wet season. It can walk well without water. So that's why it is, and the beef is very good, so the meat is very good. So that is why we'll have it here.
Owing to the recent developments in the neighborhood, such as the construction of new highways and anticipated high-tech industrial Konza Techno City, Kapiti serves as land bridge between the Nairobi National Park and the Amboseli and Tsavo parks. It is increasingly becoming a haven for the region's wildlife. A delegation led by PS State Department for Crop Development and Agricultural Research Hamadi Boga was treated to an insightful tour of some of the projects such as the Eddy Covariance Towers. These are sophisticated weather stations that also measure land surface temperatures in the rangeland ecosystems. The data is continuously relayed to the International Space Station and will ultimately enable researchers to assess the resilience of both crop and pastoral rangeland systems to climatic stress such as drought and floods. The PS reiterated about the importance of research in agriculture.
Most important investment in any agricultural enterprise is the genetics. And for you to arrive at good genetics, which will give you good economic value or the qualities that you are looking for, it takes many years of research. I think when we were visiting the sheep, you saw the breeding between the Dopa and the Maasai and the products that come out of that. They have better qualities, they are more resistant. So the whole agriculture industry is built on research. You start from there, you generate superior seeds or you generate superior breeds. Otherwise you are stuck with what was there before. And in terms of being able to feed the global population, you have to always improve on productivity, whether you are dealing with livestock or you are dealing with the crops. Like the Borans you have seen there, that's a crossbreed. But when you see it, already you see it's a fantastic animal compared to the original Boran that is out there. Of course, it has traits which are preserved and which are useful. So it's very important to build the knowledge base. And so when you see those, they are products, they are solutions that have come out of many years of research that support the whole livestock industry. You've seen about the bracharia grass. It was our grass. It went to Brazil. It transformed because they were able to understand it while we were using it in its natural form, not as a commercial fodder crop. So research is the genesis of all the products that we see out there.
So what does it take to become a successful beef farmer? Some advice from the experts. Paul Thiongo for KTN Farmers TV.
Dr. what is your reaction to that story?
It's I think, one of the stories that need to be said out loud more often. You know, the country, we're used to talking about the challenges and problems we have, and not talking about the areas where we have the potential to find solutions. So the Kapiti Ranch, which I know most of the vets have passed through in their research work and so on, is one such. It's we can call it a crown in our research work. But then we also need to know, is it being put to good use? It's a big ranch, as you just mentioned, but is it being put to good use? Because I think we have the capacity to do more. We have the capacity to see more research and solutions coming out of that ranch. So you've mentioned there's research going on Rift Valley fever, malignant catarrhal fever, and foot and mouth disease. These are some of the infections that are causing a lot of problems to Kenyan livestock farmers in the country. We have had recently outbreaks of foot and mouth disease in the country that have been associated to vaccine failures, for example. So can we put to good use this ranch and the research facilities in this ranch? Because I think most countries will be proud to host such a big institute like the International Livestock Research Institute. But I don't think we are taking advantage of that position. Yeah.
One of the research areas that they're working on is on disease-free cattle.
Yeah.
What do you think this means for the farmer and for the livestock sector as a whole?
Yeah, this disease-free livestock farming is normally a challenge in our country because the borders, even in county, the county borders are not strictly managed, for example. So you'll find if one county tries to eradicate, let's say, foot and mouth disease, and then declare the livestock free of that disease, it is going to be hard to control those borders because you'll find cattle coming in from the other counties that are going to disrupt that system. Now, if we can get such a ranch where it's enclosed and there are very few animals going in and out, of course we have livestock, but I think that is a different area of discussion. If we can have that, then it can serve as a model to the other farmers and even to the government, because I know the government has been trying to set up disease-free zones at the cost for imports. Because the challenge is Kenya at the moment cannot import to these luxurious markets like Europe, the European Union, and so on, because it is very hard to find an area in Kenya, a zone, a disease-free zone in Kenya. So what the government is doing at the moment is trying to come up with disease-free zones at the cost. And then from there, animals can be taken there. They go through a quarantine period.
Yes.
They are tested against all these diseases, and then they are fed and then exported directly through the port. So these can serve as a model for the government on how to do it. Because without disease-free zones in the country, we are never going to get back the share of our market in the European Union. Yeah.
What about for the farmer?
For the farmer, as we said, there's only, as I would say, basically, there's only so little a farmer can do on their own. So research, especially funded by the government and these international organizations, are what small-scale farmers in our country will rely on how to do their own livestock farming. So, for example, the challenge of foot and mouth disease that we are having, maybe can it be solved by doing more research, not just producing more vaccines, for example? Can we do more research even as we do vaccines? Or can we do research on the vaccines that are in the market? Can we at least, as professionals and, as we say, these research institutes, show the way to the farmer on how to do these things? So I think the farmer benefits if we do more research, if we find more solutions. Yes.
So the research will assist in improving livelihoods both for the farmer and also on a national scale.
Yes. So with the farmer, of course, the improvement will not be direct. But over time, of course, if you have better practices being disseminated countrywide, then as an individual farmer, you also pick up those practices. For example, if you have a better practice that is going to give you alternative to using antibiotics, for example, and then if it becomes a nationwide thing, it's easier for you as an individual farmer to pick it up. And then you realize some of these things will always actually cut costs. They'll cut costs, they'll give you more money in the pocket at the end of the day. Yes.
Thank you for that. Now we're taking a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more.